Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Kerbal Space Program. Today we are going to be sending our first manned mission on over to Duna. For the mission name, I went with Dunamis, and for the first rocket here, we are going to call it Alpha, and then we're going to have a beta stage as well. But the Alpha stage is going to go into orbit around Kerbal, then the beta stage is going to catch up to it and hopefully dock together. That way we're not launching a massive rocket like we did for the mundane mission. We want to have a lander and an orbiting rocket like we did with the mundane one, but not just send it all in one go to have a super big rocket. So that is the plan here. We're going to have Alpha orbiting and we're going to have Beta as the lander. So let me get to work here and put both of these together and see if we can actually get these two into orbit and connect them together before we launch on over to Duna. Alrighty, well here's our lander. Hopefully we are able to take off. We are using the brand new thrusters that we just unlocked, or the solid boosters that we just unlocked, and then we're using one of the mainsail engines, which is one of the new ones that we just unlocked as well. So hopefully we are producing enough thrust to actually take off with this thing. I also might be overcomplicating the whole lander because I might have gone a little overboard with the heat shielding. We have one of the heat shields on the bottom, and then we have 4 more going up away from the engines, so that hopefully they're not breaking on entry into Duna, because it is going to have an atmosphere, so hopefully that's going to keep everything from exploding. And then I'm not too sure if these engines are going to be enough to take off, or if this fuel tank is going to be enough for these engines to take off. So we might be stranding some people here today, but I also went ahead and added in a re-entry capsule for the pilot that is currently on here, because we're not going to take them on the mission with us. We're going to get this thing into orbit, and then we're going to throw them in there and send them back to Kerbal before we send off to Duna. But anyways, let's see if this is able to take off here. So everything is on. We are actually moving. That is fantastic. Well, we got our lander into orbit, but before we send Valentina back down, I want to very quickly adjust our orbit just slightly to make it even 100 by 100, so that way it's not a little wonky like it is right now. So let me go ahead and do that before we send her back down, and then we will launch our main vehicle here. I finally got our lander into 100,000 by 100,000 orbit, and we still have a ton of fuel left over. So what we're going to do now is send Valentina back down, and we're going to be launching our main rocket. I also need to keep in mind moving forward, regardless of whether or not it is a manned mission or not, I need to put solar panels on here, because this thing has not had any electrical charge since we basically got into orbit. So we've just been spinning around using our thruster from time to time when we line up correctly on our nav ball, and we've also used a little bit of our RCS fuel. So I need to put solar panels on these things moving forward, just so we have that electrical charge, because man, that kind of sucks just spinning around hoping to get in the right direction. But anyways though, we are going to be sending Valentina down, so let's transfer her over to the little capsule. And this thing also does not have any electrical charge. That sucks just a little bit here, but it should hopefully be okay. We want to go into a retrograde and then start burning. Are we already in a retrograde? I can't quite tell if that's a retrograde or a prograde marker. Either way, we can't exactly do it right now because we're going to go right into our lander. So we have to wait until we can start spinning a little bit, and then maybe eventually we go down and land. Alrighty, well hopefully our main stage rocket gets into orbit just as easily as our lander did, so let's go ahead and full throttle and launch, and yep, okay, cool. We are taking off. We are going up kind of the same speed we normally would, so that's a good sign. Oh, that's real bad. That is real bad, but somehow nobody died in that whole exchange. Wow, okay, I thought we were about to lose everybody right there, but okay. Well, we need to add in a couple more struts because that could have been very, very bad there. I need to put ourselves into a retrograde, and we're going to go all the way up to 90,000 kilometers before we start coming back down. So, thankfully enough, these guys did not just die there. We still have parachutes, right? We do indeed. Okay, so we should be able to land again. I'm going to throw some struts on our rocket, and we will relaunch here in just a second. So, attempt number 2 here. Let's hopefully not shake apart again. That would be really great. Alrighty, well, we got our main stage on into orbit here. Let's go ahead and extend our solar panels as well before we run out of power, because this thing is still using it, trying to keep us locked into our angle that we are. But now all we got left to do is to dock up with our lander, and then we can adjust for some maneuvers to fling us toward Duna. So let me try and connect with our lander before we do anything else. Oh man, we are finally in a position to try and start docking these things together. One thing I am realizing very quickly that I'm sure I'm not going to enjoy in the long run of this mission is our complete lack of control over this rocket, because right now we have full electrical charge and I just cannot spin this thing for the life of me. So we might want to throw a couple of the electrical thingamabobbers on there. I forget what they are called, but I have them on my satellites, but I didn't bother putting them on here because I didn't think we would need them, but it's starting to look like we do. So I am going to try and get closer. I'm trying to keep our speed down to 0, but again, it's really hard to spin our nav ball with this massive rocket right now, so it's not really working out in our favor. All right, oh my goodness, we are finally docked. Admittedly, I used so many quick loads, I don't even remember how many it was right now, but I could not get this thing to connect. They kept bumping together and just bouncing apart, so finally it just snapped together here. I have no idea how well this rescue is going to go either, or not rescue, but landing and then taking off and redocking, because we have used so much of our RCS fuel already that I don't think we're going to be able to redock, so we're most likely not getting any science other than what we can transmit from the surface of Duna. So we're most likely just going to get into orbit and jetpack our dudes back to our capsule and re-land them on Kerbal, unless we run out of fuel. That could always happen as well. But anyways, all we got to do now is set up a couple maneuvers and get ourselves flung on over to Duna. So let me go ahead and do that, and hopefully we get slingshotted on over close by to it. All right, so I have a maneuver set up here. We are going to be getting another assist off of the moon. It's going to fling us out into the solar system again, and then once we are out there, we are hopefully going to be able to adjust our orbit to potentially have a connection point with Duna at some point here. Now, if we do end up running out of fuel, we're going to be stranding our 3 people, so that's not going to be very great for us. And what I'm doing right now is actually transferring the fuel from the lander stage over to our main stage here so that we can drop this whole tank. So we're going to try and use up all that fuel here. We have a few seconds before we have to start burning, and it looks like we are on the maneuver node right now, so we're good to go. I am going to keep an eye on this whole thing and hopefully transfer the fuel as we go. Well, that's looking a little concerning here. We got quite a wobble going on with our fuel tank there, so let's see if we can empty that as we're going here, so that way we don't have that accidentally blow up. So we don't want these guys, we want these guys, and we want these guys, and we want to drain this stuff as we're going, so hopefully these guys empty before we potentially break apart here. I don't know if that's going to happen. If it does, that's going to be really bad for us, but hopefully it doesn't. Well, I got all the fuel out of this thing, so let's decouple it. And I hopefully did the right thing there. We still have our heat shield on there. Okay, we're good. Let's take a look at the map and see where we're going exactly. Hopefully we got the right trajectory here. We are Not quite on the right one that we wanted. I think we might have gone a little bit past where we needed to go. Can I try and adjust for this? So we have an adjustment maneuver coming up here. It's going to take us 11 seconds to adjust, and it's going to increase our trajectory by 2 days. So if we leave it as is right now, it's going to take us 10 days to leave Kerbin's orbit, but by doing the maneuver and getting the grav assist from the moon, it's going to speed it up to 8 days. So it's going to be pretty nice. We're going to be in space a long time regardless, just to get over to Duna and do all the stuff we're trying to do. So in the long run, it's really not going to matter too much, but yeah, it's going to help us speed up the process just slightly here, so it's going to be beneficial, I think. And keeping with tradition of me not being able to execute a maneuver correctly, we are looking at 9 days of travel instead of 8 and instead of 10, so we only shaved off 1 day. So not the greatest move here, but it is what it is. Also, by the way, while we're traversing all the way to Duna, I am going to do multiple scientific studies again because we do have some new pieces on this mission. So if we open up our doors, we have this guy, which is a seismic accelerometer, which I'm not sure if we can run it. We can't run that. And we also have this thing, which is a magnetometer boom. So I'm not sure what that's supposed to do, but we're going to run a study on that as well. And are we going to get science from that? Yep, 67 points. Okay, cool. We're going to hold on to that. I'm going to run everything else. Maybe we do get a little bit more. And I'm also going to rerun all the science stuff when we do the flyby of the moon. That might give us a little bit more science. And then once more after that when we leave Kerbin's orbit, because then it should probably count us as orbiting the sun, which might also give us some more science points from that, and then we won't run it again until we get over to Duna. So let me go ahead and run a couple more science things here, and then hopefully we have some sort of a connection with Duna somewhere down the line here. So before we get too far away from Kerbin, I am going to be calling an audible and re-landing, because right now, if we continue on with this mission, we are going to be stranding all of our astronauts on Duna, because the only maneuvers that I seem to be getting right now are maneuvers that require us to burn 1800 milliseconds of fuel, and we only have 1369 left in our big tank, so that means we are going to be dipping into our reserve tank, which is meant to get us away from Duna back into orbit around the sun and then back to Kerbin. And then we also have a little tank for some minor maneuvers if we needed to do that. So right now, instead of getting everyone stranded, I'm just going to cancel the mission, relaunch it at a later date when we have a little bit more experience sending out our satellites to Duna and the other planets, so that way we know how much fuel and what the maneuvers are that we need to do. So what we're going to try and do is have a connection point back with Kerbin. I was going to wait until this connection point here, but we're going to be orbiting for 2,280 years if we leave it there, so that's not going to happen. But we'll try and adjust so that we have a closer connection point, and then I'm also going to try and have our lander re-land on Kerbin. We do have a heat shield, and we have a whole bunch of parachutes, so we should be able to land. I'm just going to drain the fuel tank so it's not that heavy. Well, thankfully enough, we have a connection point with Kerbin coming up here shortly, so if everything goes to plan, we should be re-landing on Kerbin here in just a moment. Now, this may or may not work out, but I'm going to activate all of the parachutes on the lander now that we're facing that direction, and then decouple and flip ourselves around. So we want to activate all of these parachutes here, so let's, can I just do this manually so I don't accidentally mess anything up? I can indeed. Okay, so let me activate everything. Hopefully this doesn't result in them breaking immediately, and with all of them active, let's go ahead and decouple before we start going into the atmosphere, and that was kind of what I was worried about happening. Can I very quickly transfer back to this one? Cool. Let me also make sure that we're controlling from this one. We are indeed. And our lander is already not going to enter the atmosphere in the direction that I wanted it to, so that might be a little bad. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that the lander is going to explode on re-entry, because it completely spun all the way around here, so that's a lost cause. We're going to hopefully land. We have a whole bunch of science in our little box up here, so we should have probably a couple hundred again, because we got quite a bit. I don't think the entire lander exploded, because I heard parachutes open a moment ago, so are we able to transfer back to it? We are. Look at that. This thing survived. The only thing that broke was the science thing on top. That's kind of cool. Okay, well, we're going to get our money back for that at least, so it's not a complete lost cause. All right, not bad. We made 470 science on that run, so that's pretty good. We made 97% of our money back, or 94% of our money back. We also got Bob all the way up to level 3, so Bob is our scientist. Oh, we also got Jeb. Never mind, I completely spaced on that. So that's pretty good. Okay, so let's get those guys done with. Let's see if we have enough to unlock anything that we really want to get right now. So we're going to unlock this engine. It's the nuclear engine. engine that we have available. So that's 300 points down the drain. And then we're also going to unlock this thing. I don't know if this is going to help us make docking easier or if it's meant for like the asteroids and stuff, but it's apparently a grabbing unit. So if I can use that to like latch onto the other ship, I would very much like that. So we're going to unlock those as well. So I figured we can see what exactly this thing does right now. So let's arm it. And is that it? I guess, maybe. And once something touches it, maybe it closes again. I'm not too sure. We can control from here, but I can't... As far as I'm aware, I can't move that thing anymore. Anyways, I guess we'll figure out what that does when we have something in orbit. So I'm going to do these science experiments real quick because we haven't done these ones on Kerbal. And then we're also going to have this guy do an EVA real quick and gather up a little bit more science as well. So this is the new engine that we just unlocked. It's not intended for takeoffs. I think it's more intended for things that are in space already to have a little bit more better fuel efficiency going on. So right now we're at full throttle. We also unlock the ability to lock onto our maneuvers. So that is going to be huge for our missions moving forward. But anyways, let's see if this even produces enough thrust to take off. And it sure doesn't. Okay, I think it's only like 60 thrust or something like that. It's very, very minimal. Anyways, that is where we're going to be wrapping up today's episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.